It's the middle of June, so I figured why not use this time as the perfect time to go over my 2019 reading goals, have a little check-in with you and with myself, and see how all of this is panning out. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're just gonna go briefly through all of the couple, I don't even know how many there is, like 6, something like that, 6 goals that I had, and see if I'm anywhere near accomplishing them or if I need to work on it. So let's get into this thing. The first goal was to read 120 books over the course of the year. I've had that goal for the past 3 years and I have yet to meet it, but the last 2 years that I tried, I had big cross-country moves, so I really, it was just a fool's dream if you think about it. But this year, since we're a little more settled in, I thought I can definitely do this. There's no reason I can't. I usually read about 10 books a month, and that is the goal in order to make that happen. And so far, with the exception of 1 month, we are doing really, really well, and in total, at this point, I have read 59 books so far this year. So I'm actually ahead of schedule, which is great. At the end of June, I should be at 60 if I was sticking to the 10 books a month. So most of the months, I have either met the goal or gone a little bit over it, and those have added up to get me a little bit ahead, which is awesome. It takes some of the pressure off if something does happen, if schedules get busy. I don't feel quite the same amount of pressure to meet that 120 goal. And life is life, so I hope nothing happens, but if it does, then I don't know, it's just nice to be over-prepared or ahead of the game a little bit. So that first goal is definitely on track and I feel really good about it. My second goal was to read 6 classics that I already own. I made this goal specific to books that I already have because I realized in 2018 I was trying to read classics and I made a list of them and I was really structured about it, but I didn't actually own any of those classics already, and I think in a weird way I put too much pressure on it and didn't end up reading, I think, more than 2 or 3 of them. So for this year, I just wanted to say read 6 classics that you already own, that are already on your shelves, and I do have some that I keep meaning to read, but they just continue to sit there. Typical, right? So as I counted over my list, I realized that technically I have accomplished this already, except not in the way that I intended or not in the way that I mean to going forward. So I'm not really counting this, even though technically I've already done it. The reason I'm not counting it is because these are all rereads. They're all books that I've already read except for 1 or 2 of them. So I don't think that it necessarily should count towards the goal, because when I made that goal or that outline in my mind, I was talking about books like Ernest Hemingway and Virginia Woolf, books that I got at like a library book sale, I kid you not, like 3 years ago and have yet to read. Those are the books that I meant to accomplish reading, so it's good that I'm having this check-in because I can kind of realize, hey, you're rereading a lot, which is great, and I love that. It's really fun, it's really comforting, but at the same time, maybe the next time I feel in the mood for something more traditional, I can just reach for something new instead. So hopefully I can stick to that, but I don't know, because I'm really on a rereading kick right now. My next goal was to read more of our vintage, obscure nonfiction that we sort of accumulate and collect whenever we go to sales or bookstores on travel. We tend to just find weird books because we just like it. We like that whole appeal that they're probably hard to find. You'll probably never find them again, and it's just sort of something you stumble upon, and it's just a fun collection to have. I wanted to actually read those and go beyond just the flipping through that we generally do when we decide if we're going to purchase them or not. And this is a surprisingly hard goal to accommodate because they're vintage, so they're written in a classic sense, sometimes in a really different way than you might expect, but there's also a benefit to that, and that it's a totally unique experience. So far, I've only managed to read 2 of them. One was Nature Secrets, which I think took me 3 or 4 months, but I really enjoyed it. It's just that it takes longer, and I think I have to be okay with that. The other one that I read was Markings, which was a recent pick. So it's still one of my vintage, obscure books, but it was a more recent purchase, and I kind of wish that I had focused a bit more on some of the books we've had for a little while longer. So I'm gonna pay more attention to that, and it's good, again, that I'm doing this check-in so that I can just tuck that away in my brain machine and hopefully mark a few of them off the list. I don't want to go crazy or anything, it's just that I don't want to have these books around forever, and it's kind of like a door to a secret world that you're never opening, and that's annoying, like I want to open it. What's behind there? So I definitely want to focus more on that. My 4th goal was a little bit of a weird one, I guess, or an uncommon one. I realized that I was reading a lot of books with female leads and hardly any with male leads. This isn't something that I really think about. I don't really go in pondering like the pros and cons of the characters and who they are and whatever. I just want to read a good story. But I did notice that in 2018, and I thought it was kind of interesting. I think I had read Robin Hood, and I realized that I was kind of missing those types of stories because I just like having both perspectives. I think that it's part of the cool part about reading is that you get to experience different people's ideals and just like the way they look at the world. So I wanted to pay more attention to that, and I'm actually doing way better than I thought once I did the numbers. It's interesting how your mind works, because when I just think about it, I don't really remember specifically the books that there were, but when I look at the list, I'm like, oh, I'm actually doing really good on that goal. So I did count, and it would probably take me honestly 3 or 4 goes through the list to get this super accurate, because there's things you have to consider, like, is the book with 1 lead or 2 leads, or is it a bunch of people, or is it mostly male or female perspective, or male or female lead character? So it's not a perfect number, but I'm just rolling with it. So the number I got after 2 runs through was, I have read so far out of the 59 books this year, 17 of them had male leads and 15 of them had female leads. So that's pretty, you know, interesting, and I'm surprised that I'm meeting that goal. And I also like that I'm not thinking about it too much. I'm just sort of letting it happen. But it's cool to sort of have it in a little bit the back of your mind, and just to kind of acknowledge that. I think it's kind of a cool goal. I think you just sort of fall into these accidental ruts, and that's what was happening in 2018. I was just reading one type of book for a lot of the books I was reading as far as the character perspectives. So I'm glad that I'm mixing it up a little bit, and I'm really enjoying it. My 5th goal was to review everything on Goodreads, even if it was only a line or 2. And so far, I think I have accomplished that. I don't think there's anything yet that I haven't at least written a few words about, though I do try to write something substantial. But reviews take a lot of time, as I'm sure you know. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy, so I'm just sort of letting it be. But when the words are hard to come, or if I feel like I'm taking too long on it, I don't want to let the pressure of doing it prevent me from ever actually accomplishing it, if that makes sense. So I just decided if it feels like too much or too little or something, like, don't worry about it, just write something down on Goodreads, so that even if it's not the most elaborate, you still have a record of your thoughts and you can still help other people out. And I'm really glad I'm doing this, because I have had people message me on Instagram and they would ask me if I liked a book because they saw that I had read it on Goodreads, but they said you didn't review it, you didn't say anything about it. And I always feel really bad when that happens, because they went like to the trouble of seeking out my reviews and there wasn't anything there. So I just want to be more consistent, and so far I think I've done that this year, which is pretty awesome. My last goal was to focus more on page number count rather than just book total count. As I said in my initial 2019 reading goals video, I don't think Goodreads is like the perfect system. If you read a lot of epic fantasy novels that are super long, then obviously you're gonna have read fewer books by the end of the year than someone who reads like graphic novels or shorter books or middle grade books or whatever. Both are totally valid, but some people put a lot of focus on the number, but they don't think about what goes into that number. And I just wanted to think in an, I guess, more well-rounded way. I still have the goal of the total number of books by the end of the year, and I think that's a great guideline for me. But I also just wanted to think about how much I was actually reading by page number, which isn't a perfect system either, but I just think it adds something, another dimension to it, and see if I could push what my normal levels were. So I've actually managed to do that, which is weird. It's not, again, not something I'm consciously thinking about every month, like, am I doing this? But I think somehow setting these goals puts it in the back of your brain and you think about it a little more. So luckily I've been recording my page numbers for years. I don't know why, it just seemed like something to do. So in my journal I can go back and see, and I did calculate it last year. I usually was between 1,700 and about 3,500 a month. Like, you know, everyone has their ups and downs. It's not like every month you're gonna read a perfect number or a perfect amount, but that was definitely the average. It was around 1,700 to 3,500, somewhere in that range. And this year, interestingly enough, I am up. I am more around 3K on average to 4K, with one exception, which was April, which is a bad reading month, and I think it was like 2,200 pages or something. So it's really cool actually that I am upping the amount that I'm reading, and I think the page number can be a more accurate, though not perfect, way to judge how much you're taking in. So I'm pretty proud of that, and I think that's really cool, and I'm just gonna try not to think about it too hard again, but just sort of see what happens throughout the rest of the year. So that is it for my little mid-year 2019 reading goals check-in. I'd love to hear about how yours are going, if you've thought about it, if you outlined them at the beginning of the year, if you're more just rolling with it, letting things happen. I'd love to hear about your experience so far with reading this year. Let me know. If you liked this video, do me a quick favor, press that thumbs up button, drop me a comment below, and if you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, but you like all things bookish, book reviews, TBRs, hauls, unhauls, all the good bookish stuff, then I'm your girl. So go ahead, press that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.